My name is Avery Monroe. I'm 27 years old. And until 3 weeks ago, I thought my life was stable. Not perfect, not dramatic, just steady in that quiet way that makes you believe you're moving forward. The kind of stability where you plan summers a year in advance, where you talk about weddings like they're inevitable, not hypothetical, where you assume the person beside you isn't secretly rehearsing their exit. I'd been with my boyfriend, Ethan Blake, for 2 years. We'd lived together for one. We didn't fight loudly. We didn't break up every 6 months and call it passion. We talked things through, or at least I thought we did. That Thursday night started like any other. Leftovers in the fridge, one lamp on in the living room, Ethan pacing instead of sitting. That was my first clue. "Avery," he said, voice careful, too careful. "We need to talk." I didn't panic. Not yet. I muted the TV and waited. 2 years teaches you patterns. His tone wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was prepared. "I care about you," he started, the universal opening line to bad news. "But I'm not in love anymore." There it was. "I think," he continued, eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder, "we should shift into being friends." Shift. Like we were changing lanes. Like this was a gentle adjustment, not a full emotional amputation. "Friends?" I repeated. "Yeah, we get along great. Same friends, same interests. We'd be amazing friends, just not great partners." He said it like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror, like he was pitching an idea he expected me to agree with. "I need to find myself outside of us," he added quickly, "but I don't want you out of my life." That was the part that stung. "So you're breaking up with me, but want me to stay?" "That sounds harsh," he said, wincing. "I just think we're better as friends. We can still hang out, be in each other's lives." And then I noticed the bag by the door. Packed, shoes zipped inside, toiletries, chargers. "Rachel is picking me up in an hour," he said, "just for a few nights, while we sort out the apartment." Sort out the apartment. 2 years, shared rent, shared plans, talk of a future, and he already had a place to land. "You planned this," I said quietly. "I knew you'd be upset," he replied. "I wanted to make this easier." Easier for who? I sat there, absorbing the reality. He wasn't asking to break up. He was informing me. And he expected gratitude for the way he'd softened the blow. I looked at him, really looked, and I made a decision. "Okay," I said, "let's be friends." His shoulders dropped in relief. "Really?" "Yeah," I replied calmly. "You're right, adults can handle this." He smiled, genuinely smiled, like I'd just signed off on his ideal scenario. "Dump me, keep access to me, avoid guilt. This is why we work," he said softly, "even now." Rachel picked him up an hour later. She gave me that look, the sympathetic one, like I was fragile, like I needed saving. I waved. The next morning, I did exactly what Ethan asked. I treated him like a friend. And that's when I learned something important. His definition of friendship and mine were not even close. The first text came at 7 a.m. the next morning. "Ethan, hey, hope you're okay. Can you drop off my work tablet? I forgot it in the rush." I stared at the message for a long moment, thumb hovering above the screen. 3 weeks earlier, I would have jumped out of bed, thrown on sweatpants, and driven it over because that's what partners do. They smooth each other's chaos. They fill in gaps. They make life easier. But he didn't want a partner anymore. So I typed back what I would send any other friend. "Me. Sure, I'll leave it at your office front desk Monday." A pause, then, "Ethan, can't you bring it to Rachel's? I need it this weekend." I could almost hear the tone behind those words. Not a request, an expectation. "Me. Monday works better for me." "Ethan, what do you mean works better? What plans do you have?" I felt something sharp and clean settle in my chest. Friends don't interrogate schedules. "Me. Just friend stuff." The typing bubble appeared, vanished, appeared again. "Ethan, this feels kinda cold, Avery." Cold. That word used to scare me. In our relationship, it was the accusation he'd use when I didn't immediately fold, when I didn't soothe, when I didn't soften myself into something easier to handle. But now, it landed differently. "Me. I'm being friendly. Exactly what you asked for." Saturday morning, another text. "Ethan, Rachel and I are hitting that new cafe. Want to join?" That was the cafe we'd been hyping up for months. The one we said would be our Saturday spot. The one he was now casually inviting me to like I was his coworker. "Me. Thanks, but I'm good. Enjoy." 2 minutes later. "Ethan, come on, we always do Saturday coffee." I almost laughed. "Me. That was when we were dating." A long silence, then, "Ethan, you're acting weird." "Me. Like what?" "Ethan. Distant. Like you don't care." And there it was. When Ethan said friends, he meant keep loving me quietly while I move on. When I heard friends, I heard boundaries, distance, a clean line. By week 2, Ethan started treating the apartment like it was still his. I came home from work on Tuesday and the place smelled like my lavender detergent. Not because I'd done laundry, because someone else had. There were wet towels hanging in the bathroom. My snack shelf looked raided. A mug sat in the sink with coffee rings around the edge. Then I saw it, a sticky note on the counter, written in Ethan's loopy handwriting. Stopped by, grabbed some stuff, showered, hope that's fine. Hope that's fine. As if my home was a storage unit he still had access to. As if my space was still ours, even after he'd stepped out of it. I texted him immediately. Me. Hey, I saw you stopped by. I'll need my key back soon. His reply came fast, like he'd been waiting to argue. Ethan. Why? I still have things there. Me. We can set times for you to pick up your stuff, like friends do. Ethan. This is ridiculous. We live together. I read it twice. We live together. Not lived. Not used to. Present tense. Like nothing had really changed. My hands shook, not with sadness, but with a new kind of clarity. The kind that makes you realize you've been generous with access someone didn't deserve. Me. We used to live together. Now we're friends. Different dynamic. That evening he showed up. Not texting, can I come by? Not asking if I was home. Just knocking like he owned the door. When I opened it, his eyes were already hot with anger. You're being childish, he said before I could even speak. Childish? Because I wanted a locked door. Because I wanted my life to feel like mine again. I'm setting boundaries, I replied, keeping my voice even. He stepped forward like he planned to push past me. You can't just cut me off like this. I didn't do anything to you. I held my ground in the doorway, blocking his path with my body, my calm, my refusal to yield. You ended the relationship, I said. I'm respecting your choice. He scoffed. By treating me like a stranger? I'm treating you like a friend. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. You're not treating me like a friend. Because what he meant was, you're not treating me like your boyfriend anymore. I exhaled slowly. My friends don't have keys to my place, I said. None of them come in when I'm not home. None of them help themselves to my shower. He looked genuinely offended, like I'd just demoted him to something humiliating. I'm not just any friend, he snapped. And I couldn't stop the words that came out, clean and cold as a blade. Per you, that's exactly what you are. His jaw tightened. So what, you're going to box up my life? I already did, I said, and stepped aside enough to hand him a medium cardboard box I'd packed that afternoon. His chargers, toiletries, a few shirts, the essentials. You can schedule a time for the rest, I added, like we agreed. His eyes darted to the box like it was an insult. I can't believe you're doing this, he muttered. After everything. After everything. He meant after all the comfort he'd received. After all the access he'd taken for granted. After all the ways I'd made myself available because I thought love meant never being inconvenient. He walked away furious, clutching the box like it was evidence I'd wronged him. And that was the moment I understood. Ethan didn't want friendship. He wanted the perks of me. The entitlement got worse as the weeks went on. He still used my Hulu login, still ordered off my Amazon Prime, still stayed listed as my emergency contact in places he had no business being. When I changed passwords and removed him, he acted like I'd committed betrayal. Then came the board game night. Our friend group had planned it weeks before the breakup, back when next month still included him and me as a unit. I showed up alone. I didn't make a scene. I didn't look sad. I didn't announce anything. I just walked in, brought chips like usual, and sat down. And then Ethan arrived, with a woman, a tall, athletic-looking stranger. This is Lena. We met at the gym. Lena seemed decent, honestly. Nice to meet you, Lena. Welcome. Ethan blinked, thrown off by the fact I didn't flinch. Then I sat back down and proceeded to crush everyone at Settlers of Catan like my life wasn't on fire. Halfway through the night, Ethan cornered me in the kitchen. He didn't come in casual. He came in desperate. You don't even care, he hissed. I poured myself water like we were discussing the weather. Care about what? He lowered his voice. I'm here with someone else. I met his eyes, calm as a locked door. Okay. His face twisted. You're not jealous, not even a little. I took a sip. Are you jealous when your other friends date? That's different, he snapped. How? He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he couldn't say the truth out loud without exposing himself. He wanted me to ache, to chase, to wait. And I wasn't doing any of that. Then I noticed something else. Across the room, Rachel, Ethan's best friend, was watching me. Rachel had always been the calm one, the steady one, The guy who didn't take sides loudly, but always seemed to see the truth before anyone else did. That night, he kept finding reasons to talk to me. Small jokes, light touches on my elbow, a subtle warmth in his eyes that hadn't been there before. I wasn't flirting. I was just existing without Ethan's shadow, and it felt like breathing. The next morning, Ethan texted me at 6:58 a.m. Ethan, what was that with you and Rachel? I blinked at my screen. Me, what was what? Ethan, the flirting. Don't act dumb. Flirting. I almost smiled. The irony was so sharp it could have cut glass. Me, we were just talking. Ethan, he's my best friend, Avery. I stared at that line and felt something settle again in my chest. Ownership. Even now. Me. And you're my friend too, right? Friends can talk to each other. He didn't respond. Not for 3 days. Then on Thursday evening, like he'd rehearsed a new strategy, he texted, Ethan, I think I messed up. Can we talk? I read it slowly. Not I'm sorry, not I hurt you. Just I messed up. Like the breakup was an accident. Like I was a consequence he hadn't calculated properly. Me. Sure, what's up? Ethan. In person. Dinner. Our place. Our place. Even now. Me. You mean the pizza spot? I've got plans. But we can do coffee Saturday. Seconds later. Ethan, plans with who? I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was, for the first time in weeks, I had plans that didn't involve him at all. And the fact that it would wreck him wasn't even the point. It was just the consequence. By the third week, it was obvious Ethan's find himself journey wasn't going the way he'd imagined. Lena from the gym, his carefully selected jealousy prop, ghosted after 2 dates. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation, just silence. The kind that hits harder than rejection because it tells you exactly how disposable you were. Meanwhile, my life had gotten quieter. Not emptier, just calmer. I wasn't walking on eggshells anymore. I wasn't managing someone else's emotions while ignoring my own. I slept better. I laughed more. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes, bracing for the next emotional demand. And somewhere in that calm, something unexpected happened. Rachel stepped closer. It wasn't dramatic. No confession, no sudden shift, just consistency. He checked in, without pressure. He listened, without trying to fix me. He showed up, without entitlement. Then one Thursday night, he texted, Rachel, hey, random question. I've got an extra ticket to a stand-up show Saturday. Want to come? I stared at the message longer than necessary. This wasn't Ethan asking to talk. This wasn't an emotional negotiation. This was simple, direct, clean. Me. Yeah, that sounds nice. Before the anxiety could creep in, I added, me. Just so you know, Ethan's been weird about us talking. 3 dots appeared. Then, Rachel, noted. Still want to go? I smiled. Me, I do. Saturday night, I got dressed slowly, carefully, not to impress anyone, but because it felt good to choose myself again. As I grabbed my keys and my phone lit up, Ethan, are you serious? I didn't need to ask what he meant. Me, about what? Seconds later, the flood started. Ethan, Rachel told me you're going out. You can't date my best friend. That's crossing a line. I leaned against the doorframe, suddenly very tired. Me, why can't I? Ethan, because it's friend code. I let out a short laugh. Me, I thought I was your friend now, not your girlfriend. There it was, the crack in his logic. Ethan, you know what I mean. Me, I really don't. Friends don't control who their friends date. He called me, once, twice, 17 times. I silenced my phone. The date with Rachel was easy. He was funny in a quiet way, observant, present. We talked about work, travel, childhood memories, about everything except Ethan until the very end. Rachel sighed, fingers tracing the rim of his glass. He called me earlier, he admitted, said you betrayed him. I met his eyes. How do you feel about it? He didn't hesitate. Honestly, he hasn't been a great friend to either of us lately. Then, softer, he told me keeping you as a friend was his backup plan, in case he didn't find someone better. The words landed heavy, but clarifying. Rachel shook his head. That's when I realized you deserve better, and maybe I wanted to see where this could go. When he kissed me goodnight, it was gentle. No rush, no claim, just a moment that felt earned. Ethan found out anyway. Sunday morning, 6:02 a.m. He was pounding on my door like the building was on fire. Open up, I know you're in there. I didn't open it right away. Through the door, I said calmly, it's 6 in the morning. I don't care, he snapped. We need to talk. About what? You kissed him. I opened the door then. He looked wrecked. Same clothes from the night before. Hair messy, eyes red and wild. You did this to hurt me, he accused. No, I said quietly. I did this to live my life. I said friends, he insisted, not that you could date my best friend. You said you needed to find yourself, I replied. I let you. I moved on. He tried to push past me into the apartment. I blocked him with my arm. You don't live here anymore. I still have stuff. Schedule a pickup, like we agreed. His face twisted. You're being cruel. I held his gaze, steady. I'm setting boundaries. There's a difference. That's when the campaign started. He called mutual friends, telling them I was revenge dating, that I was punishing him, that I'd planned this. Some believed him, most didn't. Our friend Marcus called me one night. Ethan says you're dating Rachel to get back at him. Did he mention he dumped me to find himself but wanted me as a backup? I asked. Marcus paused. No, he skipped that part. Funny how that worked. Then Ethan escalated. He called my workplace, claimed to be my emergency contact. Told my boss I was having a mental breakdown and needed time off. My boss called me into her office, concerned. Your boyfriend called, she said carefully. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected, and I'm fine. I documented everything. HR, emails, dates, times. A paper trail is a form of self-respect. A week later, at 2:13 a.m., Ethan texted, Ethan, we need to talk. I'm pregnant. I sat up in bed, fully awake in an instant. Me. Congrats. Who's the father? Ethan. You, obviously. I felt nothing. Just math. Me. Interesting. Since we haven't been intimate in 2 months. Ethan. It can take time to show. Me. And you've been with how many people since? Silence. The next day. Ethan. False alarm. Doctor said it was a scare. I didn't reply. The final straw came when he showed up at Rachel's workplace and caused a scene, yelling that I'd stolen his life, that Rachel was a traitor. Security escorted him out. Rachel called me afterward, shaken. I might need to file a restraining order, he said quietly. We did. That, combined with getting fired for missing work during his meltdowns, finally forced reality to land. Mutual friends said Ethan moved back in with his parents. Court-mandated therapy. Part-time job. No more grand speeches about finding himself. He sent one last email before I blocked him. Hope you're happy. You ruined my life. You turned my best friend against me. All because you couldn't handle being friends. I didn't respond. What would be the point? In his story, he was still the victim. In mine, I was finally free. The truth is simple. When Ethan said, let's be friends, I believed him. I treated him exactly like I treat my friends, with boundaries, distance, and respect. He couldn't handle it. Not because I was cruel, but because he wanted devotion without commitment, security without responsibility, love without effort. When I refused that role, his plan collapsed. Rachel and I are still together. It's honest, calm, drama-free. And that's the real ending. Not revenge, not punishment. Just consequences.